Every day we test hundreds and hundreds of different websites, and we notice some patterns of what things break and where people can benefit from using testing automation comparing to just visually glancing through the site. So we will talk about different cases that are easier to see without testing tools. And then the last ones will be pretty hard, that are very hard to notice when you're just looking at the site, but very easy for visual testing automation. So the first one that is easiest to spot is the content changes. If you're looking at the site and you see that the content changed unexpectedly, this is something that you can see pretty fast. And of course, visual regression testing tools will notice that for you as well. If you're using some tools, good practice would be to synchronize the content between the environments, let's say staging and production, if you compare them. And this way, tools will not notice the difference. And these are usually considered as false positives. The next thing that is also fairly easy to see is the layout issues. If, let's say, you uploaded image that is smaller, or the code that was there is treating, let's say, last item of the block differently, and it had some unexpected changes, you will see it fairly fast. And this is what our customers see when they are applying testing. In this case, because of the image was rendered much smaller for some reason, the whole layout of the blog got broken. Another thing that visual testing can find for you fairly fast if you miss something related to integration with external APIs. So let's say your API key is missing, or something is wrong with some other integration. You will be able to notice this type of bugs fairly fast as well. So those were pretty simple ones. Let's talk about more complex ones. So one of the things that get broken fairly often is the styles related to buttons. In some cases, you can notice the difference fairly fast. For example, this one, orange button on orange background, doesn't look that great. But in some cases, it's fairly hard because you have content change. So naturally, you're more tied to larger changes. So you look at it and go and skip it. But actually, the search button changed as well. You can see the font changed and the size of the button. So these are the things that can be identified with visual tools, visual regression testing tools fairly fast. The next one is the background images. Of course, websites, they do images optimization to save some bandwidth for the users. And if something went wrong there, it can be pretty tricky to notice when you're just glancing through the site. If you look at it in some breakpoint, maybe it is not noticeable at all. But it is a break, and then in some breakpoints, let's say on desktop, it will be very obvious for your users. So it's very important to run some testing automation to notice this type of things. The next one is probably the trickiest, is the fonts. If you change the font size of the headings and it's applied just to some specific element, it's very hard to notice when you're just glancing through the site. In this case, you can see that headings changed maybe a few points of the font size. It can be not a big issue at all, but still, it's a regression that should be either accepted or fixed. So regression testing tools can help you with that. And the trickiest one that we noticed is if the font changes itself. So in case you are applying some styles to the fonts, you usually do that as the family. So you have your preference choice 1, 2, 3, and maybe sometimes 4. And if the first one is not loading for some reason, you might miss that, especially if it's applied just to some parts of the site. In this case, you can see that the font changed just for the specific language. And of course, if you look very, very attentive, you can notice that there is some differences in some characters, but when you're just glancing through the site, you will not notice that 100%. So these are the things that are very hard for human to notice, because just amount of information that is displayed on the page, but it's very easy to catch by some automation. So these are the top of the bugs that we see that are easy to catch by using tools, but hard for human beings. If you know any others, let us know. We are happy to discuss them. Thank you. Bye.